Cause this is my birthday, bitch. And I am 28. I will smack a big bitch. What that bitch wanna do? I'll send you right to the Lord. Okay, Rika. Come on, nigga. It's her birthday. Happy birthday. It's her birthday. Fuck it up, fuck it up.
At midnight on June 25, 2023, 28-year-old Jasity Strong raised a shot glass to her phone screen, toasting her birthday with her mom over FaceTime. "Happy birthday to me," she laughed, her smile full of hope and dreams. She had every reason to celebrate: a growing career as a makeup artist, a fresh nursing assistant certification, and, most importantly, being the proud mother of 2 children. But less than 5 hours later, Jasity would be lying dead on a Kansas City street. Her blood spilled across the asphalt, shell casings scattered like deadly confetti. 3 people killed. 6 more wounded. Over 50 shots fired. And all of it sparked by something as simple as a hug. What kind of hug could cause a massacre? Who was the killer, a man walking free just 48 hours earlier? And why did the justice system fail so badly that a birthday celebration turned into a crime scene? The details you're about to hear have never been told this completely before. Some will make you question how violent criminals are handled in America. If you believe stories like this matter, and if you think understanding these tragedies is the first step to stopping them, hit subscribe and turn on the notification bell. Because this story shows how systemic failures can affect anyone. To understand the weight of this loss, you need to know who Jasity really was. She wasn't just another headline, she was a fighter who built something out of nothing. Born in 1995 in Kansas City, Missouri, she entered a world where the odds were stacked against her. Her mom, Tamika Jenkins, was only 15 when she had her first baby. "We grew up together," Tamika would later say, and she meant it. 2 kids, learning the hardest lessons of life side by side. Jasity's childhood wasn't easy. Her biological father was killed before she even knew him, another victim of street violence. That early loss shaped her view of life forever. While Tamika worked hard to finish school, Jasity spent much of her time with her aunts, building strong family bonds that carried her through. Things started to change when William Jenkins came into their lives as her stepdad. He gave her the stability she had been missing and became the father figure she longed for. But by then, Jasity had already developed her strongest trait, a fierce determination to protect the people she loved. As the oldest of 5 siblings, she naturally stepped into the role of a second mother. Not because she had to, but because it was who she was at her core. While other teenagers were worried about fitting in at school, Jasity was busy taking care of her younger siblings. Everyone who knew her described her the same way: bubbly, forgiving, happy-go-lucky. But those words don't fully capture who she was. Her family called her Jas, and that name became a symbol of reliability. If anyone needed help, money, advice, or just someone to talk to, they called Jas. And she never said no. Friends said talking to her felt like therapy. She made you feel seen, heard, and never judged. Even with all the responsibilities on her shoulders, Jasity never gave up on her dreams. She earned her certified nursing assistant license, inspired by her grandmother's struggles in healthcare. She saw how many elderly patients were ignored or treated without dignity, and she vowed to make a difference. For Jasity, this wasn't just a job, it was a calling. She stayed late to comfort lonely residents, sang their favorite songs during tough treatments, and quickly became known as one of the most dedicated and caring on her team. But becoming a CNA was only step 1. Jasity dreamed of becoming a registered nurse. She was already researching programs and saving money for school. For her, it wasn't just about career growth, it was about turning her childhood pain into compassion for others. What many didn't know was that Jasity had another gift: makeup artistry. She was self-taught, but so talented that she became a semi-finalist for a Kansas City People's Choice Award. Her makeup style reflected who she was, giving confidence to others. She often worked for free, doing prom looks, job interview makeovers, and helping women who couldn't afford professionals. She knew sometimes a little confidence could change everything. Her business was growing, her social media following was rising, and she dreamed of turning her artistry into a brand. Makeup gave her freedom and flexibility, a way to balance nursing, motherhood, and her passion. In her mind, everything was finally coming together. Nursing would give her stability, makeup would give her creativity, and her kids would grow up watching a mother who proved that with love and determination, you can overcome anything. Have you ever known someone who naturally takes care of everyone around them? Share their story in the comments below. When it came to dating, Jasity carried hard-learned wisdom. The fathers of her children had already taught her valuable lessons about choosing partners carefully. Although Jasity kept her past relationships private, friends noticed she had become more careful with age. She sometimes talked about wanting companionship, but she was clear, any man would have to respect her priorities as a mother. Her close circle of girlfriends helped her balance life. They offered childcare, encouragement, and described her as the peacemaker of the group. Jasity always found a way to resolve conflicts and keep harmony. Her social life was carefully planned. Nights out only happened if trusted childcare was arranged. Friends knew that unless it was a special occasion, like a birthday, she wouldn't stay out past midnight. Money was always a balancing act. Her CNA job gave her steady income, while her makeup business brought in extra money for things like Kirsten's school supplies and Junior's diapers. She tracked every dollar carefully. She was even saving for a new home, a place with good schools, safe playgrounds, and space to grow her makeup business. "It's our turn, Mom. Things are finally going to be good," she had told Tamika. She dreamed of moving into her own house by the end of 2023. She even looked into life insurance policies, determined to protect her children's future no matter what. June 25th was supposed to be the start of that new chapter. Tamika's house was decorated with balloons and streamers, and Jasity's favorite chocolate cake with vanilla frosting was waiting. The plan was simple: celebrate with friends that night, then have breakfast the next morning with her children. Her last FaceTime with Tamika captured her joy. Just after midnight, Jasity raised a glass and laughed, "Happy birthday to me." She was glowing with excitement for the year ahead. But no one could have imagined that only hours later, those same birthday decorations would become a memorial to a life cut short. What do you think is the biggest challenge single mothers face while chasing their dreams? Share your thoughts in the comments. Now, let me tell you about the man who would shatter so many lives that night. His name was Keivon Greene. He wasn't a random stranger. Born in Kansas City on July 7, 1996, Keivon had been heading down a dark path for years, leaving behind red flags that the system never stopped. Keivon Greene's childhood was unstable from the very start. He bounced between relatives, witnessed domestic violence, and grew up in constant chaos. Some kids in that environment fight to survive. Keivon chose the other path, becoming a predator. By his teenage years, the red flags were already there. Teachers reported angry outbursts over the smallest things. He couldn't keep friends because of his temper, and he eventually dropped out of high school, refusing every program meant to help him. Jobs were no different. He bounced from construction to fast food to warehouse work, never lasting long. Every boss complained about the same thing: he couldn't control his anger, he fought with coworkers, and he refused to take orders. Each firing only made him believe the world was against him. His real problems began when the law got involved. In January 2019, at just 22, he was arrested for carrying an illegal gun, and multiple drug charges came with it. This wasn't casual use. Keivon was already part of Kansas City's street drug trade. From then on, things escalated. Each arrest was worse than the last. By May 2022, he was back in trouble for drugs, weapons, and violence. And every time, he skipped court dates, treating the justice system like a joke. Court records paint a disturbing picture: a man with no self-control, a history of violent outbursts, and heavy drug abuse that only fueled his instability. Yet, time after time, he was released back onto the streets. Keivon never took responsibility. Every failed job, every arrest, every broken relationship, it was always someone else's fault. He cut ties with positive influences and instead surrounded himself with other criminals who encouraged his worst behavior. He became a regular at after-hours spots in Kansas City, places known for crime and chaos. And he wasn't just a visitor. Keivon was known for starting trouble, quick to anger, and usually armed. People knew he was dangerous. Then, on June 13, 2023, just 12 days before the massacre, Keivon drove the getaway car for a shoplifting operation. When police tried to arrest him, he fought back. A search of his car turned up, once again, an illegal gun. And this is where the system failed in the most shocking way. Despite his violent record, his weapons charges, and his history of skipping court, Keivon's bond was set at only $1,000. No ankle monitor. No restrictions. Nothing to stop what was about to happen. No one thought about public safety when Greene's bond was set. On June 23, 2023, he posted that week $1,000 bail. Just 48 hours later, 3 people would be dead because the system decided a repeat violent offender was worth so little. On the night of June 25, Greene showed up at Perfect Touch Auto Detail with his girlfriend, the same woman whose innocent hug would set off his deadly rage. Witnesses said he was restless and hostile all night. He had been drinking heavily, mixing alcohol with his short temper and violent tendencies. There had been so many chances to stop him before this night. Past victims could have spoken about his escalating violence. Neighbors already knew how dangerous he was. But instead of protecting the community, the justice system failed again. Outdated bail policies and careless decisions allowed a ticking time bomb to walk free. By 4 a.m., Perfect Touch Auto Detail looked nothing like the daytime car shop it was supposed to be. By night, the garage turned into an underground nightclub, no permits, no licenses, no oversight. There were no emergency exits, no security guards, no bag checks, no crowd control. Just loud music blasting from cheap speakers and alcohol flowing without limits. These types of secret clubs were becoming common in Kansas City, drawing big crowds looking for fun after bars closed. But the danger was obvious. Late hours, heavy drinking, cramped spaces with no exits, and no security to break up fights. Other underground clubs had already seen violence, stabbings, shootings, and brawls, but most of those incidents went unreported. It wasn't until tragedy struck that anyone paid attention. That night at Perfect Touch Auto Detail, the mood felt light and celebratory. The garage pulsed with music, people danced shoulder to shoulder, friends laughed and passed drinks, and several guests were marking special occasions. Birthdays, especially, seemed to be the theme of the evening. Jasity moved through the crowd that night glowing with happiness. She was 28, celebrating her birthday, hugging friends, taking photos, and soaking in every moment. Just a few steps away, 22-year-old Nico Manning was also celebrating his own birthday, surrounded by family. The energy in the room was pure joy, with no sign of the danger about to erupt. Then, at 4:30 a.m., everything changed. Surveillance cameras captured what happened next, how one small interaction spiraled into chaos. Near the entrance, a man in a white shirt, later identified as Keivon Greene, stood with his girlfriend. She had just exchanged a harmless hug with another woman, nothing unusual, just a friendly greeting. But the woman's boyfriend, maybe joking, maybe being protective, looked at Greene and said, "Watch your hands." Normally, that kind of comment would end in laughter, maybe an eye roll, and then everyone would go back to partying. But not with Greene. His face hardened. He walked away instead of brushing it off, a chance to let things cool down. But he didn't cool down. Moments later, Greene spoke briefly to another man. No one knows what was said, but when Greene returned, he was armed. At exactly 4:33 a.m., the first gunshot exploded. Greene fired into the crowd, hitting the boyfriend who had made the comment. The man fell to the ground, shot in the back, but he was still alive. For a split second, it seemed like maybe that would be the end of it. But then someone else in the crowd pulled out their own gun. What could have ended with a single bullet now erupted into a full-on gun battle. More than 50 shots rang out in seconds. The garage turned into a war zone. Music cut off, screams filled the air, and bullets tore through the crowd. People threw themselves to the floor, hid behind cars, or ran for the exits in sheer panic. Cars parked outside became riddled with bullets as the gunfire spilled beyond the building. The asphalt turned into a battlefield, with people trapped in crossfire coming from every direction. In the chaos, 29-year-old Camden Brown fell in the parking lot, his life ending between the very cars he thought would shield him. Nearby, 22-year-old Nico Manning collapsed. Just moments before, he had been celebrating his birthday. His father later recalled the horror, hearing what felt like hundreds of gunshots, then watching as his wife desperately performed CPR on their son until paramedics arrived. Inside the fleeing crowd, 28-year-old Jasity Strong, the birthday girl, was struck down as she tried to escape. Hours earlier, she had FaceTimed her mother at midnight, laughing and smiling. Now, on the same date she was born, she died in the street, her blood mixing with the Kansas City asphalt. 6 others were injured but survived, including a woman shot in the hip who would later help police identify Kevin Greene. When the shooting finally stopped, silence was replaced by sirens. Shell casings littered the ground like deadly confetti, a grotesque echo of what had started as a celebration. Police arrived to find bodies scattered across the street, while neighbors described it as sounding like a war breaking out. Onlookers pressed against police tape, begging for answers, praying their loved ones were still alive. And in a cruel twist, Kevin Greene, the man who started it all, had also been shot. A single bullet struck his hand. He would get medical care at a local hospital, the same care that came too late for the victims. Across town, at Club Mama's house, Tamika Jenkins received the phone call that shattered her life. The birthday cake still sat on the counter, untouched. Streamers and balloons still hung from the walls. Upstairs, her children, Kirsten and Junior, slept peacefully, unaware that their mother would never return to finish her birthday. It had taken less than 5 minutes. From a simple hug, to a massacre. 3 families torn apart forever, because one man chose violence instead of walking away. How should after-hours clubs be regulated to prevent tragedies like this? What safety measures would you require? Share your thoughts below. For the Kansas City Police Department, nightclub shootings weren't new. But nothing compared to the carnage they faced at Perfect Touch Auto Detail. Within minutes of the first 911 call, detectives were already locking down a crime scene that stretched across 57th and Prospect. What they uncovered made the case unusually straightforward to solve, despite its devastating complexity. Surveillance cameras had captured everything. Frame by frame, investigators watched the night unravel, Kevin Greene in his white shirt approaching the group, the brief words exchanged, his retreat, and then, most crucially, his return with a weapon. The footage was crystal clear. Detectives could see his face, his movements, even the very moment he made the choice to pull the trigger. This wouldn't be a case where they'd spend weeks searching for a suspect. Within hours, they had their shooter on video. But the real breakthrough came from a voice, not a camera. Among the wounded survivors was a woman shot in the hip as she fled. From her hospital bed, she gave investigators something surveillance couldn't, a name. She had seen Kevin Greene in Kansas City's nightlife before and instantly recognized him as the man who fired the first shot. Other survivors confirmed her account, describing the same man in the white shirt, the same sequence of events, a joke, anger, and then mass violence. The timeline was undeniable. While detectives pieced together evidence, Greene himself made a critical mistake. Instead of disappearing or trying to escape, he went to a local hospital. His hand had been hit by a bullet during the very firefight he started. Hospital records confirmed it. Just 12 hours after the massacre, Kevin Greene walked into the ER seeking treatment. When officers arrived, they found their suspect right there, on the gurney, being treated for a gunshot wound. Greene's arrest happened quickly, but what he did next was very revealing. Instead of staying quiet or asking for a lawyer, he immediately started spinning a story. He claimed he was just an innocent bystander, caught in the middle of chaos when gunfire came from all directions. But detectives already knew the truth. They had him on video clearly starting the violence. They had ballistics linking weapons to him, blood evidence from the scene, and multiple camera angles showing him firing into the crowd. Even his hospital records betrayed him, documenting the gunshot wound he got during the very shootout he claimed he wasn't part of. The evidence was overwhelming, almost impossible to fight in court. What do you think goes through someone's head when they're caught so obviously? Do you think Greene really believed his own lies? Justice moved fast. Within 24 hours of his hospital arrest, prosecutors filed their first charges, first-degree assault and armed criminal action. But everyone knew that barely scratched the surface. The surveillance footage told the full story. Greene was the one who turned a birthday party into a massacre. Legal teams worked non-stop, going through ballistics, witness accounts, and autopsy reports. The evidence showed exactly how his anger led to deadly consequences. By the next day, Jackson County Prosecutor Gene Peters Baker announced upgraded charges. Greene now faced 2 counts of second-degree murder, 1 count of second-degree felony murder, and 3 counts of armed criminal action. Each murder charge carried a possible sentence of 10 to 30 years, or life in prison. The felony murder charge was especially serious under Missouri law. The law is clear: if someone commits a dangerous felony and it results in death, they are responsible for every life lost. Even if Greene's bullets didn't hit all the victims, he set everything in motion the moment he opened fire. That chain of events killed 3 people, and legally, it was all on him. The irony was striking. Just days before, Greene had walked free on a $1,000 bond. Now, he sat inside the Jackson County Detention Center, this time with no bail at all. No amount of money could get him out. But court cases don't move quickly. Motions, discovery, and endless scheduling stretched what should have been months into years. As of August 2025, no final verdict has been reached. Greene's lawyers tried to flip the story, painting him as the victim, a man who got caught in a crossfire and only fired back in self-defense. But the video evidence crushed that argument. It showed Greene clearly starting the violence, leaving little room for doubt. What do you think? Should the felony murder rule apply here? Should Greene be held responsible for all 3 deaths? Share your thoughts in the comments. At 4:47 a.m., Tamika Jenkins' phone rang. She had fallen asleep with birthday decorations still hanging from the night before. That call shattered her world forever. Her daughter, Jasity, the little girl she had raised since she was just 15 years old, was gone. A life cut short on the very day she was supposed to be celebrated. Instead of blowing out candles, her family was forced to plan a funeral. For Tamika, the pain was unbearable. The birthday decorations still hanging in her home became a haunting reminder of what was stolen. Jasity's children would grow up without their mother, her friends would never hear her laugh again, and her community would never forget the senseless way her life was taken. The tragedy at Perfect Touch Auto Detail wasn't just about one man's violent choices. It was about a system that ignored warning signs, released repeat offenders, and allowed a dangerous situation to spiral into catastrophe. 3 lives were lost, and countless others were left broken. And as of today, the case against Keivon Greene is still winding through the courts, with families waiting for justice that feels long overdue. But here's the bigger question: how do we stop tragedies like this from happening again? Should bond laws be stricter? Should after-hours clubs be more regulated? Or is the real issue deeper than that? Let me know what you think in the comments. And if you believe stories like Jasity's deserve to be told, make sure to like this video, subscribe, and share it so more people hear her story. Because remembering the victims, not just the crime, is how we honor their lives.